Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, June 2nd, 2016. I'm Keith Tebow. On this week's show, we give you an update on the proposed fiscal year 2017 city budget, a look at the completed Quilt to celebrate the lives of drug overdose victims, and an update on the progress of a splash park being built in the Flint. But first, let's go over the headlines of the week. We bring in Will Richmond, digital news editor at the Herald News. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How's it going?
Doing well. Last week, we talked about the resignation of Chris Perrino, Mayor Jazio Correa's chief of staff. Well, today, the mayor has announced a replacement for the chief of staff position. And as we're recording this, just so the viewers know, the mayor had yet to hold his press conference to announce the hire, but obviously the Herald News, Will, you and the paper have announced that it's going to be retired police sergeant Michael Hoare, who is taking over as chief of staff. First of all, Will, what do we know about the former police sergeant?
Well, he was a longtime police officer in the system. I believe spent some time in the traffic department, or there was a good portion of his career. And then towards the end, he wrapped it up serving as sort of one of the right-hand men for Chief Racine. I believe he had a heavy hand in managing the finances for the department. So he's got some administrative experience from the police side as well as field experience. Right.
So that's what he brings administratively to the position. I guess one of the first things that we have to bring up is the fact that current Mayor Jazio Correa, during the election last year, criticized Mayor Sam Sutter for hiring Lou Pacheco as his chief of staff. Of course, Mr. Pacheco had served as a police chief, retired, and receiving a city salary. I'm sure the questions will be asked. This is sort of the same thing. A former police administrator in this case, retired, now taking a city salary. Could it be viewed as maybe, monkey see, monkey do in some ways?
Yeah, I think there was a lesson learned in the appointment of Lou Pacheco under Sam Sutter in terms of hiring retired employees on a pension and what that means in terms of hours that they're available to work, any salary restrictions, that kind of thing. So it does seem like a case of deja vu here, but certainly we'll wait for the mayor's 3:30 press conference today on Thursday to find out just how he's going to kind of get around those possible restrictions.
And please, on the latest on the story, please visit the Herald News and also frcmedianews.org for more information, as the mayor made the announcement as you're watching this earlier in the afternoon, but as we taped this was actually after the time we're taping this segment. All right, well, soon after we were off the air last year, Mayor Correa unveiled his $255 million proposed budget for fiscal year 2017. And I guess just looking at it for people who had not had a chance to see it yet, there really isn't much of a surprise in what's in here, other than the fact that, taxes will be raised 2.5%, water fees, sewer fees are going up, but the mayor is also holding the line on the number of police officers and firefighters. But anything else that can be gleaned out of this budget?
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be much of a significant increase in any fields. The budget itself as a total is pretty close to what it was during the current fiscal year that will end at the end of this month. We actually were planning to sit down with the mayor and his administration early next week to kind of dig into some of the finer details and hear their pitch on why this is the budget that's needed for Fall River. So we'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, you'll notice even, like I said, it's a pretty flat budget from the year before, which I think comes in part with the elimination of the $10 per month sanitation fee. Those revenues couldn't exactly be made up to increase the budget, so it stays pretty flat from this year.
Right. According to the report that you had in the Herald News, last year's budget, the current spending plan, which we're still in, FY16, $245.1 million. This is about $10 million more, $255.6. We talked about the fact that, again, taxes going up by 2.5%. There is a proposed increase in the water and sewer fee, the elimination of the trash fee, And also, what's important is the net school spending number, which we've talked about quite a bit over the past few weeks. It's going to be closer to what the mayor's interpretation of the net school spending number is versus what the school department had talked about last week. Is that correct?
Yeah, it will. The mayor has said all along he'll fund the school department at 100%. Of course, that 100% number is based on the existing budget formula. We are still waiting on a determination from the Department of Ed to finalize what any carryover amounts may be, though that's an amount that it seems if it is going to get sort of reimbursed by the city, we'll have to wait until free cash is certified, usually in the area of October, and then a transfer would have to be made to the school department to cover any carryover.
Any indication yet from the city council on when they'll start accepting comments on the budget and when they will take this up?
I believe they've tentatively scheduled their hearings for not next week, but the following week. I think that's the week of the 12th, 13th.
Yep.
So last I heard, I think they discussed this at their last full meeting. They were tentatively planning for 3 meetings during that week, one of which would likely include the school department being brought in to talk about their budget, and we'll take it from there.
All right, so we will follow this as we get closer to the end of June, and we'll have more on the story. A couple of city councilor responses to the mayor's proposed budget coming up later on here in FRC Media News. I want to talk briefly about the King Philip Mill in the south end of Fall River. There's been movement on that issue. Can you fill us in?
Yeah, the 2 requests for proposals had been submitted to the city. Some development options are going forward there. The city is prepared with their demolition permit if that is the case, but it seems at this point that still a lot to be figured out with the King Philip Mill. A lot of concepts at this juncture, some residential, some manufacturing space. So what exactly is going to happen, we're still waiting to find out. But at this point, at least, it is known that it's cleaner than it may have previously been thought to be. So the remediation may not be as intense as once feared, and that may help to get things moving over there.
All right, and finally, before we look ahead to what's going to be happening in the next week, this year, of course, a presidential election year, and much has been made about the candidacies of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and also Bernie Sanders, still on the Democratic side. But you had an article this week about some of the state candidates, as it's also a state election in terms of the legislature and some county seats. And it looks like the incumbents in this area pretty much have a clear road to re-election.
Yeah, people won't find many choices amongst candidates on the ballot in this area this year. All of the members of the Fall River Legislative Delegation, Rep. Viola, Schmidt, and Sylvia, are uncontested. Senator Rodrick is uncontested, as is Sheriff Hodgson, District Attorney Quinn, the county commissioners, the governor's counselor Joe Ferreira. So they all pretty much have a free path back to their positions. The only race locally is out in Swansea, where 2 of the districts are represented by Republican Steve Howitt. He'll have a challenger in Democrat Paul Jacques. Right,
and that's not, again, City Fall River proper, but in our region and in the Herald News' coverage area. And we'll soon find out there will be some contested races in terms of the 2 congressional seats that serve the city of Fall River, with both Bill Keating and Joseph Kennedy, and those will be finalized in the next week or so. Is that?
June 7th, I believe, is the deadline to be certified for the congressional ballots if you're running in a party. I know at this point there's at least one Republican who has been certified to run against Kennedy.
Right.
And then there's a pretty serious Republican who ran 2 years ago against Keaton as well.
So other than the presidential race, the people here, voters in Fall River, will have that to look forward to as well as the ballot gets finalized for November. All right, Will, what's the Herald News working on over the next few days?
We're heading right into the heart of graduation season, so of course we'll be joining you guys at the BCC campus on Saturday to provide coverage of the graduation there. We've got a number of high school graduations, with many of them beginning Friday night that we'll be covering, and continuing through next week as well. So it's a good year to be a high school, or a good time to be a high school senior.
Absolutely. All right, Will, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, have a good weekend, Keith.
We'll have more FRC Media news right after this.
Here are some positions on the newest hot job list for the week of May 30th through June 5th. Legal Assistant, job number 737-2645. Food Prep Chef, job number 738-9032. Master Electrician, job number 740-4600. Registered Nurse Supervisor, job number 740-4688. Security Officer, job number 738-8923. Customer Service Representative, job number 738-4617. For more information, visit frcmedianews.org or call the Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. Fall River City Councilors are reviewing the city's estimated $255 million proposed budget for fiscal year 2017. Although still early in the approval process, City Councilor Ray Mitchell was approached by FRC Media News asking for his initial view on the spending plan.
One of the things that the mayor has stated is that there is no, that the budget will be balanced. There's no increase in monies for school department. I wish there was, but there isn't. We are very close to the vest on this budget, and it's going to be a very difficult task to get through the next year with the lack of money that we have.
Ray, you've obviously been a city councilor for many, many years. What is your take on this year's budget? It is a tough one.
It's going to be a tough budget. It's a budget that is going to be very close in each department. There's not going to be any extras in any department. It's going to be a very close budget for everyone. The school department was asking for $5 million over net school spending. And unfortunately, we're lucky to give them net school spending. And of course, if you go by the figures that the DESE has sent us, we still owe them $1.2 million for this year. So that's going to be a burden on next year's budget.
Meanwhile, City Councilor Pam La Liberty LeBeau is concerned about the school department numbers, which are part of the entire spending proposal.
We've got two separate issues. We've got the level services issue, and then we've got the net school spending issue, both of which are still up in the air. I know the mayor said he's going to meet net school spending. So I'm just curious and interested to see how this is all going to play out. And the City Council does have budget meetings scheduled for the 13th, 14th, and 16th of June. The 16th is if necessary. One night we'll talk about the city side, one night we'll talk about the school side. So, and I usually beforehand will go into City Hall. I'll sit with Kathy Ann, I'll sit with Mary Sahadi, do my homework. Less questions asked during the meeting. I try to get it done ahead of time. But I still expect those to be marathon meetings, and hopefully we're going to come to a great resolution.
And that's the thing. Nobody can predict the future. But it is a tough budget. What do you think about the mayor privatizing trash?
Well, we have those numbers. I have questions on those numbers. And what I keep saying to everybody is the City Council really doesn't have a say if we privatize or not. He's taken that decision out of our hands. So it's going to be a factor of the numbers for us, but we don't have a choice in the matter. The only thing that we have a choice in the matter is if we sell the trucks. We have asked him repeatedly. We've asked the administration to get more than one quote. I think if you're going to sell your car, you're going to go to a couple different dealerships to find out how much it's worth. I'm hoping that they're going to do the same with the trucks, but we've asked 3 times now, and so far that hasn't happened, and I'm not sure why there's the stalling on that.
City councilors have until June 30th to approve the city budget. The Fall River School Committee is in the process of interviewing 10 candidates for the position of school superintendent to replace outgoing superintendent Meg Mayo Brown. The candidates are currently being interviewed in executive session. It's anticipated that the finalists will be interviewed in open session later this month. The school committee hopes to have someone in place by the end of June. If not, an interim superintendent will be named. A memorial quilt to celebrate the lives of drug overdose victims is being displayed at Government Center. Donna Mata has the details.
I'm standing here in front of the Never Forgotten Memorial Quilt to commemorate those who died from drug overdoses here in the city and the area. The quilt was put together by Helen Rigo, who is vice president of the Niagara Neighborhood Association, and her daughter, who is in the medical field, Shirley Black. Helen Rigo tells us more about the quilt.
It's when you come in the main entrance, you will see it hanging on the glass walls. He's allowing us to leave it there for as long as we want. Now, on these pictures, this picture's on the title of it is Never Forgotten. Because we've got to remember, we have to remember these people. This is so that we can educate these young people. This is where I could land if I don't stop doing what I'm doing. So I thought it was a great thing. And I'm hoping if we get more pictures, we will add to it and make another one.
Rigo also says that physicians and nurses who are overseeing drug forums in New Bedford have asked to borrow the quilt on June 22nd. She adds that with Mayor Correa's approval, the Niagara Neighborhood Association will gladly lend the quilt to the Whaling City with the understanding that it comes back for display here in Fall River. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
So this is Philip. He's 1 year old, Chihuahua mixed breed. Very much a love bug, as you can probably tell. He just comes over, attaches himself to you, and really just likes attention. Not super playful, just very affectionate.
This is Callie. She's about 8 years old. She loves to walk around and rub up against your legs. She's very affectionate, and she would also like to find her forever home. If you want to come and check her out at 300 Linwood Street, Forever Paws, that would be awesome.
The Flint will soon be christening a splash park due to open later this summer. Donna Mata has more.
The splash park is located behind the Espirito Santo School located on Alden Street. Flint Neighborhood Association President Carlos Caesar says his board has been hard at work collaborating with the city to get the planning, design, and funding portion to this point. He also tells FRC Media News the project began 4 years ago when Fall River resident Al Lima had a vision for the downtrodden park area.
And I have to thank Alan Lima about this. He just, on the first plan that we sent to the state, he put the bike pad on the back that we never talked about, but he saw the vision of the bike pad coming through the park. So he just threw the park, the bike pad there on the first request on the design. And guess what? It was because of that we got the money for the park.
The park was built at a cost of about $4.2 million given to the city by the state.
Then we have a full playground for 2 different ages. We have a setup for grown-up kids and a small area for the little kids. And then we have the only deck hockey in town that's on this park too. And on this side, we're going to have the only grass soccer field in town that's going to be utilized just for games and tournaments.
The water that will be used at the park will not cost taxpayers a penny.
The water, one of the things that we had to keep in mind with the water splash is the fact that maintaining, and the city don't have money to pay somebody to be maintaining, and treating the water. It was another big issue. So we resolved the problem because we have a lot of water running through, and we have a water pump right here on the park that kind of help out a lot. Is we having a pad, so when people step into the ground, the water will come on, and when people step out, the water will shut down. So we don't need nobody to maintain it. That part, and then with the treatment of the water that will go through the playground will never come back again.
And finally, an abandoned mill next to the park has been sold to a developer for the use of senior housing.
We got approached by a company, a developer, and they were interested in putting apartments there. And we just kind of worked things out, and we said we don't want more young people around, that we will be glad to support it if they could just give us elderly people to rent the space. And the day of the license, they came in front of the board for the license. They request the license for 65 and older. So I think we're going to have a lot of live cameras. Every single window of that mill is going to be a live camera to watch out for this park.
While the Splash Park is expected to be open this summer, no grand opening has yet been scheduled. For FRC Media News, I'm Donna Mata.
The Day of Portugal is a holiday that's usually only observed in that country on June 10th. But here in Fall River, the Day of Portugal holiday was celebrated by 6th graders who took a trolley tour of the city's historical site earlier this week. Donna Mata spoke with Flint Neighborhood Association President Carlos Caesar, who sponsored that field trip.
We take the kids around to celebrate Day of Portugal. The kids enjoy the trolley ride because that's the first thing they take out of the trip. But the second thing is really they drive by, they walk by a lot of Portuguese monuments on the city that they don't know the history behind and how they got here, why they got here, and why is it that statue. What that statue represents for the Portuguese community. So this is my and our neighborhood's kind of finishing a program that the school puts together here inside, and now it's our turn to take the kids out of the school and hit the streets with history, especially Portuguese history. I have to say that we've been doing this because we've been having the support of our mayor providing us the city trolley, and it's one thing that the kids really appreciate.
Memorial Day observances were held last weekend across the city. State Representative Alan Sylvia, himself a Vietnam veteran, participated in the opening ceremonies at Oak Grove Cemetery. He spoke passionately about the need for students to become proficient in civics lessons here at home.
Abraham Lincoln had made a comment, and I just want to read that. He said that America will never be destroyed from the outside. And his quotation is this: if we ever falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed them ourselves. Think about that, and think about what's happening in our nation right now, what's happening before our very eyes. Think about the importance of that. Sadly, our children do not receive the facts because they're not receiving American history or civics to the extent that they should be, not even the way you and I, most standing here today, received those lessons when we attended school. Because we focus so much on the test, we've forgotten the most important parts of our American history and our civics. That's why when you watch a lot of these late night shows and they ask the question, who is your vice president? They don't know the answer. It's sad. It's very sad. National testing has determined that less than 21% of those high school students that graduate have a proficiency in American history and civics. Less than 21%. We are shortchanging our future. That's what we have done to ourselves. We hope that that can change. And while we in the legislature, and I have co-sponsored a bill to ensure that we get the appropriate amounts of American history and civic in our schools, it still hasn't happened.
That's it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can catch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. and online 24/7 at frcmedianews.org. Some programming notes: join FRC TV this Saturday as we provide live coverage of the Bristol Community College commencement exercises beginning at 11 a.m. On Sunday, just before 12:30 p.m., FRC TV will be telecasting live the sights and sounds of BCC Celebrates the South Coast, taking place within the commencement staging area here at the Ellsbury Street campus. And finally, join us on Tuesday, June 7th at 6 p.m. as we debut our new local attraction show, Discover Fall River. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.